Today we have Manny Djornor, who has joined us briefly from Dubai to talk to our students. So, first of all, Manny, welcome to Next Generation Pro Football Academy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate you inviting me to be able to talk to you lot, and hopefully I can give you some nuggets of wisdom, some things to think about as well.
So, first of all, we've got to address current issues, Manny. What's it like being locked down in Dubai?
It's quite interesting, actually. I think we dealt with lockdown really differently to the rest of the world. The government here was quick to shut everything down right at the beginning. So last year in March, we went on a full lockdown. When I talk about full lockdown, I'm talking about everything shut down. Shops were shut down. You couldn't leave your house. You could leave your house for 2 hours once a week, but you had to apply for a permit for that. So you apply to the police for a permit, and you can only leave your house to go shopping. You weren't allowed to interact. So we had 3 months like that. And then it slowly eased it. It just meant that at the end of that lockdown period, we could go back to life as normal, or as normal as you could have it. So we were about wearing masks. We were walking about, doing kind of normal activities. You could go to the beach. You could kind of get around and do stuff. So yeah, it was all right. Lockdown was all right once we kind of got through it. But actually being in lockdown was tough. Spending every day in the house, unable to kind of move around was tough.
So what about when you kind of got back into normality? What were the social distancing rules, and what was that like training?
So initially we couldn't train, so we all got programmed. First 3 months was just doing stuff at home. For those people that had garden, so I'm privileged. I live in a villa as opposed to in an apartment, so I had a garden, so I could do quite a lot of the stuff in the garden, run programs like that. Gyms weren't open for a long time, so you'd have to do what you could. Social distance wise, in terms of training, it was tough because again, you couldn't interact with anyone, you couldn't have a personal trainer, you really had to just go by whatever program you were given. So that was tough. But once we got back to it, everything was sanitized, all the products were sanitized. So in the first month and a half, it was a lot of, you'd go in at different times, or even when we went in as a group, you'd get in, you jump on a bike, you'd have 2 meters distance, and you'd just do cardio focused and strength focused work. It wasn't until much later that we started getting back on the grass and kicking balls around.
Yes, it was quite similar here, actually. When we got back, it was very weird. Didn't know what we could do, what we couldn't do. It was really strange. Manny, tell us a little bit about your football career leading up to where you actually are now.
Yeah, it's been a long road. I actually started playing when I was 4, but just as a bit of fun. And when I come from an African home, so my mum's always been about kind of education. So growing up through school, like primary school, I never played for any of the school teams, simply because just there was no time. My mum was hardworking; she was grafting to make things come together. So was my dad at the time, to be fair. But it was always about education. So you finish school, you come home, you get on the books. You had to be top of your class and all that kind of stuff. It was when I got to maybe 13 at secondary school that one of my teachers said to me, and then eventually to my mum, that there was a bit too much talent there to go away. So he was going to kind of manage me through the process. So started off school, then county, and then managed to get trials at Palace. And I was at Palace for about 6 months. And then got trials at Chelsea, and then I joined Chelsea's academy and got released just before pro contract, because as a keeper, they were looking for people that had a bit more what they call presence. Not that I didn't have the ability, I had the ability, but I was under 6 foot, and for them that was always going to be an issue. And so they let me go on that basis, and I kind of sat out for a couple of years. I was a little bit dejected. Mentally kind of hurt from that. Then I got an opportunity to train with a group of guys who were taking on people that had just come out of the system, and trying to get them back into it. Got an opportunity in Romania, played in Romania for 18 months for a team called Brasov. Came back to the UK and kind of worked my way downwards. So first opportunity was at Aldershot Town. Did a stint there and then dropped down to kind of Ryman's level. And for most of my years after that, it was really at the Ryman's level, in and around that kind of step 5, step 6 level, until I started moving away. So then went to New York, played a bit in the PDSL, which is like a feeder, a summer tournament, and a feeder into the MLS and the draft system. Moved back, played in Wales. Know you're Welsh. So played in Wales, the Welsh First Division, for a club called Glynnis Powys. And then started traveling. So everywhere I traveled to thereafter, I always tried to look for a bit of football. So traveled to Australia, played at Manly United, traveled to Brazil. Didn't play much in Brazil, it was more recreational. And then I've been here in Dubai for 7 years. So in Dubai, I played, did a stint at a team called Mannys. However, and I'm sure we'll get into it, there were difficulties there because the system here is that as a team in the top league, you're only allowed 4 foreigners, 4 internationals. However, every single team in the top league here has an Emirati keeper. And so if, as a foreign keeper, they might have you around to try and help them improve, but then you never really get to do anything other than that. So then did that for a year, or 8 months, dropped out of the system, worked, and then got offered an opportunity when the new League 2 here was set up, to join a team called City, Dubai City FC. I went in as number 2. They phoned me up with maybe a week left of the transfer deadline. So I went in as number 2, spent the first week on the bench, and then by the end of the second week, everything changed. And then was there until the beginning of this season, and got called in for a new project, a team called Laval United, which I'm at now. Laval's run by a guy, ex-Newcastle, ex-Irish international called George McCreary, and also a guy called Yahya Kurdi who tried to acquire Liverpool back in 2010. So really good pedigree behind it. Third investor is the Sheikh of Sharjah, so really strong. So I've been helping that project out, but as a senior player, I mean, I'm 36 now, so as a senior player, it's a bit of playing time, it's a bit of getting involved, but it's also kind of passing on the knowledge and everything I've done throughout my 30 odd years of playing to the younger boys and helping them move forward, and potentially looking at doing some coaching badges moving forward as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like culturally, talking about the countries you've been to, I wrote down a few questions that I wanted to ask you at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting how you have to embed into different cultures. One question I have got is, what's the lowest point in your career as a football player? What's the lowest point, and how did it make you feel, and how did you deal with it?
I think this is, do you know what? The first thing that comes to mind is being released as a schoolboy. At that point, you kind of, it feels like you're going to make it. It feels like you're close, and you are. You know what I mean? You're one step away from signing the contract. You're one step away from, kind of playing in the big stadiums with the big crowds and so on and so forth. And you kind of feel like, yeah, I can make it. So it does hit you hard, because when you come out of that system, it's like, okay, well, what do I do now? You know what I mean? Like, everyone's known you to be that guy that plays football. It's like, what do I do now? And it hits you mentally. So that was probably the lowest point for me. Since then, there's been lots of ups and downs, and every club you go to, it's a different mentality. Different managers, different gaffers have different things that they look for. I've been around some gaffers who I thought, not even I thought, it was easier to look at their current system and their current keepers and think, I can go in there and I can do a job and I can be better than what you've got. And I know I'm better than what you've got. I've seen it in training. I do it every day. But then they're telling you, oh no, you know, I don't think this, I think this person is a little bit better. And you're looking at it and thinking, no, but they're not. You know what I mean? So you get ups and downs. It's all about just kind of having mental fortitude and just knowing within yourself that you can make it, and just keep fighting for what you believe in. But I think to answer that question shortly, the main low point for me was that big release.
Yeah, that's quite common. Talk to a few players that have been released as a young aspiring footballer, and that seems to really hit hard. So your career was set. You wanted to be a footballer. That was all you had in your mind. Now, how do you pick yourself up after that? What do you go into industry-wise, and how did you end up in Dubai?
Yeah, so for me, after that, it's a matter of playing as much football and my mindset has always been since then, I want to play football at the highest level possible, continuously. But then I also understood that I had to do other things. So put myself through uni, finish uni. What took me to New York wasn't football. What took me to New York was to go and work on Wall Street. But again, going to work on Wall Street, I wanted to be the best version of myself. So got to Wall Street, lived and worked on Wall Street. You know, I'm talking staying up doing 18, 19-hour days, you know, because I wanted to be successful. I had this hunger to not return back home as a failure. And so that's what's carried me through both in football and at work. Just did that, done various different things. So worked Wall Street and then moved to Australia, doing event sales as a director of a company, a big global company, doing event sales. Same thing in Brazil. Wales, the same, moved out here as vice president of a big tech company. And kind of, you know, came here, established them up, left them to go and do the year of Mannys, came back, kind of worked my way through there. And currently kind of mix and balance a bit of work and trying to set up my own companies along with playing football full time as well.
That's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Now, for you, I know you're adaptable. You've told us that already. But Dubai, language barrier. Come on, man. How does that work?
Do you know, I'm quite fortunate. There's been other places where it's been more difficult. So you go to like Brazil and everyone speaks like either Japanese or Portuguese, right? But Dubai is I've been fortunate with Dubai because everyone here speaks mostly English. Even the Arabs here speak a lot of English. I think where I've been mostly affected by the language barrier is in business, more so than football. In business, you go into meetings and the minute you don't speak language, all of a sudden you're dismissed. You're that guy sitting in the corner. And sometimes, you know, people kind of like run circles around you and cheat you out of it. But like I said, Dubai or the UAE is predominantly, I think it's something like 90% expat from all over the world. So it's very diverse and it's a huge melting pot of different people, different cultures. So I wouldn't say it's affected me as much here in Dubai. But for myself, the one thing that I've kind of been promising myself is I need to learn the language just so I have something that holds me at an equal ground. And even in football, you have a team that's 60% Arabic. It would be nice if you could speak a little bit of the language, you know what I mean? So yeah, no, so I'm working on that. I'm working on kind of learning the language.
That the culture, like talking about the food, people's outlook in general, like you say, a lot of expats, but what's the prep and the systems like with the football and the managers? But again, like I said, what was the because I know you prepare really well for football. You hydrate and you eat the right foods. I mean, they eat some different stuff over there.
I've got a few stories for you actually that'll make you laugh. Culturally, as much as there's a lot of expats here, it's still very, very Arabic. So when you're out and about, you know, you go into places, there's lots of Arab food here. But here's a story for you. So, and this is actually quite recent. So we play currently in Division 2, right? A week ago, we went and played a friendly against one of the top teams in the AGL, the Arabian Gulf League, and we got there, and there I had made my own food. So I went. I had sweet potato. I had mashed potatoes with salmon and vegetables, roasted vegetables. So because I wanted to prep right, as you said. So I had that lunch. Kickoff was at 5. I had that at 2:30. The rest of the players were eating all sorts because that's what's been provided by the club. Finished the game, and naturally I had a few bits of fruit, trying to kind of get myself into it. The rest of the team were taken to Pizza Hut as an after an after game prep, so an after game meal. And I was like, how do you get any recovery out of that? That was last week. We did a 2-week camp, and they were feeding us burgers in between the morning session and the afternoon session. So unless you could, kind of change your whole perception of what you want to eat and provide for yourself, sometimes it's up and down. They don't have necessarily the highest standards in terms of prep. At the top level, they do. At the top level, there's a lot of foreign managers, there's a lot of foreign staff that come in. But below the Premier League here, it's a little bit harder to step in. But it's changing. So at Laval currently, we have a German coach. He's ex-Werder Bremen. So he's trying to bring in systems of that kind of help grow the club, so to speak, and do things really well.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of Western food you talked about, Pizza Hut, burgers. What have you had on the table in front of you that people have gone, try this, it's lovely, it's delicious, and you've sort of said, do you know what, Arabic food, I know myself, you look at it and you go, I can't eat it, but if I don't eat it, I'm deemed as being rude and disrespectful. What have you had on the table?
Yeah, there's been nothing strange. There's always been like just meats and lots of food. I've had chicken liver before, but before a game actually, I had chicken liver put on the plate. But like I said, for me, I've always been of the mind. Even when I was in the UK, I was always in the mindset of I can't rely on someone else to ensure that I feel good, because sometimes even in the UK you'll go and you don't like. They'll give you pasta, for example, or rice and chicken, but you don't want rice and chicken that day. It's not going to fuel you. You need something else. Maybe I need some more vegetables or some more. So I've always been one of those people that's always kind of had some level of preparation for myself. Like I always make sure that I take care of myself, because ultimately it's my body and it's my tools, So yeah, for me, I never rely on anyone else.
You talked about the expat community and being quite a large, obviously in Dubai, a holiday destination, but it's still an Arabic country.
Yes.
It's still Arabic laws. What are the cultural expectations in Dubai? I mean, going out, drinking culture, drugs, the police. Because the police in certain countries can be very brutal, and in other countries they can be very easygoing. Yeah,
so it is, as you said, it is an Arabic country. So in terms of culture-wise, Dubai has a little bit of a drinking culture. Like you can't go crazy with it. You can't be out and about being unruly. Like how sometimes in the UK you can go on a night out and be smashed, and then just like it is there. We do have that because it's a tourist country, so you do have people that come over here and they're drinking. There's a lot of day drinking that happens, lots of beach clubs and all that kind of stuff. But you've got to kind of keep it within a limit. Like bouncers and club owners and stuff here are easy to kick people out if they feel like they're misbehaving. But there is a drinking culture. Everything else though is zero tolerance. So there is no drugs. There is zero tolerance. You can't do any of that. And if you're caught doing that, you're going straight to jail. There's no questions asked. You're going straight in.
And that's not the place to be, I guess.
It's not like, let's put it this way, it's not like Her Majesty's Pleasure. Let's put it that way. There ain't none of those snooker tables and TVs that the people in the UK enjoy. Yeah. Probably come back with a sore or something. Put it that way.
So you, for me, outside of football, it's what you would expect it to be for an Arabic country, commercialized Arabic country. But inside of football, and you know yourself, habits, dressing room behaviour, group norms, banter. What's it like in the dressing rooms there? Because it's got to be different, right?
Like, listen, banter is one of the things that I miss hugely. This season I got lucky. So this season we brought in a guy called Reece Greenwood, ex-England under 21s, played games for Sunderland. He's played with Marcus Rashford. So he came along. We had a couple of English boys on the team. So there was a little bit of banter. But perfect example, we created a players group on WhatsApp where you send around the usual stuff that you would send as a player, and just some of the boys just didn't get it. And then you had some of the Arabic boys who were like swearing blind murder because you were putting things on there that was like haram, and you're not supposed to have it on there. But yeah, no, it's the dressing room is a little bit different. It's a little bit different. You have the usual things. You have a bit of music. You have a bit of that, but yes, it's a little bit different. Even
more serious.
More clicky.
Right.
More clicky. Tend to find a lot of the Arabic boys kind of stick together. In their own little corner. The African boys all stick together. You've got someone like me who kind of like can
floats
be
around.
Yeah, floats around. So that's what it is. But yeah, it's very different. It's very different back home. It's back home. There's a bit of you're riling each other up. You're getting ready for the game. Here, it's hard. You don't get any of that. Like even walking out to the pitch, it's barely any kind of like, come on guys, let's go.
Yeah.
You don't get ready like that. You kind of get ready in your own head.
Well, as well in the UK, you get there's always banter, but you get different levels of it. And I mean, you and I have been in dressing rooms at clubs where there's no limits to where the banter goes, but it's always said in love, and I think that brings the group together. I don't know whether you feel that.
Yeah, I feel like it's needed. I feel like there's a brotherhood element in it that sometimes I miss here, because sometimes I go out and I'm one of those people that I always, once we get out there, I'm calling the huddle. I'm in the middle of the huddle. I'm getting everyone ready to go. And I feel like you need that banter in the changing room to have a sense of brotherhood, to have a sense of, I'm looking over there. Yeah, you pissed me off, but when we get out there, I'm fighting for you. You know what I mean? Like we're going to war together. And a lot of that is missing sometimes when you don't have that camaraderie and banter in the dressing room. It's changing for us slowly as we kind of bond a little bit more. We're a new project. We're a new team. This is the first season that we're in existence. So as the boys getting to know each other, there's a lot more of that. But I still tend to find this very cliquey. So when I'm for example, when I'm with one group of guys, they're moaning and complaining about stuff, and those guys over there, then I'll go over there, then they're moaning. I'm just like, drop me out of it, So yeah, no, banter, camaraderie, dressing room etiquette, kind of brotherhood in there is needed in the game.
Yeah, without a doubt. Leads me on, Manny. Thanks for your time. I mean, you've given us so much time, but I have got some quick fire questions for you.
Sure.
Before we end things up. I'll give you 6 questions, but I've got another couple here that I'm quite interested in that I'm going to go through with you. But these ones are quick fire. Biggest club you've played at?
Probably Chelsea.
Who's your hero growing up?
Peter Schmeichel. Still is.
Best player you've played with?
Played with Wilfred Zaha. I'd say probably technically one of the best I've ever seen.
Best player you've played against?
Football IQ wise, Nicolas Anelka.
Best player in the world currently?
Hands down, Cristiano Ronaldo.
Best player in the world of all time?
LA.
Okay, I've got another couple of questions for you. As you've travelled like myself to everywhere, some of the nicest and some of the worst places in the world, what's the best culture socially that you've seen?
Oof. I really enjoyed Sydney. My time there was really like they've got such a laid back approach to life. That I really enjoyed being there. You know, you come out of training, you kind of take a little bit of rest, and you can be out and be meeting people and so on and so forth. But I think for me, the culture that really had me vibrant and I always remember was Brazil, because they didn't have much. But their energy for life was huge. Every corner, everywhere you went, it was dangerous, but it was people took you into their homes for lunches and dinners that had just met you on the street like 15 minutes before. You know what I mean? So yeah, Brazil and Sydney were probably the culturally and socially two of the most amazing places I've ever been.
Best food culturally, the best food.
It's nothing better than the UK, though, isn't it? Like for me, that's what I've grown up with. That's what I've grown up with. So from a football perspective, I would say the UK, because I feel like it's designed to achieve results. From a social perspective, I don't mind, because I like to try new things. So everywhere I've been, I like to try something local. And I'm not one of those people that's fussy with eating food and stuff like. So yeah, but from a football perspective, definitely the UK for me.
Manny, I really, really appreciate it. But before you go, have you got a take-home message for our students at Next Generation Pro Football Academy?
Absolutely. Listen, the only thing I would say, and it's the one thing that I tell myself, I say the same thing to my little brother and sister, is some of us are designed to be in certain areas. Some of us are designed not to be in those areas, but at the end of the day, whatever you choose to do, there's one thing you've got to put in your mind is, can you be the absolute best? I don't care if you're a hairdresser. I don't care if you're the local, I don't know, guy who cuts keys. I don't care. Whatever you do, can you be the absolute king of it? Can you own it? Can you make it your own? Can you put yourself forward? There's a book that, it's funny enough, there's a book that Edgar Davids recommended to me personally called Talent Is Not Enough, which basically says if you're just going to sit on your talent and expect that to get you somewhere, you're going to fall short. You've got to put in the work. You've got to have this mentality of, I'm going to absolutely smash everything. And you might not be the best at something, but you can't kind of discount being the hardest worker at something, and it will always get you forward. You keep doing something for long enough, hard enough, you will move forward in it. So that's my one message. Keep working, keep striving, keep pushing. I'm 5'8". You know, Danny, yourself, when I came to you, I was down and out. Like mentally, I was down and out. But one thing that you knew about me was I'd put myself up to any 6'5" goalkeeper. And you've seen me play and you've seen me do it. It's not about anything else other than what's in your heart. So you keep pushing, you keep working, and keep fighting for what you believe in.
No, absolutely. Manny Djornor, I really appreciate your time, as we all do at Next Generation Pro Football Academy, and I'll speak to you very soon.
Appreciate it, Danny.
Take care.